Welcome to another episode of the Mad Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts, Begley, Goni, and Wayne.
Mad Mob, what is up? Week 5 wrapped up. It's time to give you all those waiver wire pickups for week 6. Gentlemen, how art thou?
Poor.
Excellent week of fantasy. Gonna win every single one of my leagues except one.
Yeah, I mean, I did excellent fantasy as well, but I'm with Begley when it comes to my financial status after what these money lines and props did to me.
Brutal, man.
It's been bad.
Brutal.
So, you know what? We can't really give you good advice on how to spend your real money when it comes to sports gambling, but we can give you fantastic advice on how to spend your fab doll hairs. Gentlemen, let's start it off with a hot commodity. And first, actually, let me say this. Goni, you're going to hear some names that was on last episode. You're going to hear them again. And Goni and I had a long talk earlier today, and we're kind of upset because some of these guys, we got to say them again because their availability is still way too high, especially for what they're doing now. So we're just going to pound these guys into your head again, and you got to pick them up. Do not make us say it a third time. Don't do it. We're going to start off with a big hitter, though. Tank Bigsby. Absolutely shredded. Now, I will say, Coach came out and said that ETN is still their guy, but at the end of the day, you're going to put out the guy that's more effective, and Bigsby had a killer game. But, Goni, how much you putting on him?
Personally, I'm putting on at least 25% of the fab. I'd put up to 40, though, if you own ETN. I feel like he's a must-have guy as a handcuff. He's showing that he's got standalone value. Just the way that things are going right now, he's averaging 8 yards a carry so far, and he's got a middle of the pack schedule the next 3 weeks: Bears, Patriots, Packers, and you know he's rostered in almost 25% of leagues across. I mean, I'm sorry, no, let me take that back. He's only rostered in about 25% of leagues right now.
Beggs?
Yeah, I want a piece of the Jaguars' offense because their defense is just so poor, man. They're always playing from behind. Every game's going to be a shootout. And going those teams, I mean, they're in the bottom half and run and fantasy points per game given up to running backs. My God, I struggled to get that out. I like Tank Bigsby. My expectations are a little dampened. He's not getting any work in the passing game, but man, he looks good as a runner.
He does, and this is the first game that he's really risen to prominence because obviously 100 yards rushing with his 2 touchdowns. But just last week, that was his first official week of getting in the past 3 weeks, he got some pretty decent week 1 work. Week 2, he didn't get anything. Week 3, only 2 rushes. Last week, 7 rushes for 90 yards. That included a big 58 banger, but still, he's averaging 12.9 yards per carry. Last week, 7.8. This past week, you got to pick him up because ETN, he's their guy. I do agree with that. But outside of him, it's Dearness Johnson, who's outside of whenever we thought he was going to be decent with the Browns, has just been nothing. So if Tank Bigsby is getting this kind of work with a healthy RB1, he's going to be a league winner if ETN goes out. Next up, a guy off of Begley's team. We'll give it over to Begley on this one. How do you feel about Jalen Tolbert?
I'm a huge Tolbert fan, man. The reality is Dallas lacks weapons altogether offensively. Brandon Cooks being injured, I think he's projected to be out a few more games. He's getting quite a bit of targets, man. I think CD's facing a lot of double coverage. And Dallas is refusing to hand the ball off, right? We are a pass first team. I like Tolbert a lot rest of the season.
Go.
Yeah, and we saw his snap share go up. He had a season high at snap share and targets, 89% snap share this week, 10 targets. He brought in 7 of them for 87 yards and the go-ahead touchdown against the Steelers. This week coming up, they're going to face the Lions, who have the second worst fantasy defense against wide receivers, giving up 45 fantasy points per game. Obviously, the target share is going to be contingent on Brandon Cooks' injury. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. But I feel like he's a guy that you need to go out and get. And I was showing that he was rostered in only about 7% of leagues thus far.
I think, obviously with Brandon Cooks being out, his value goes up. And I don't necessarily think he has. So what I'm about to say isn't me saying that he's got standalone value, but I think he's more of a game script because just in week 2, he had 9 targets, and then he had 5 targets, and then 3 targets, and then 10 targets. 25% of Dak's touchdown passes this year have been to Jalen Tolbert. I think he was more of a feast or famine play. And in the feasting, let's be honest, the feasting isn't all you can eat. But with Brandon Cooks, it's a lot safer. It's a lot safer in my opinion. He's not going to get you that touchdown every time. He's a dog. I mean, if you watch this last game that he was playing in, he had to leave the play before hurt and then came back in and made an awesome catch to take the lead. So I'm good with that one. Percentage wise, how much I'd put on him. I'm still probably only putting 5% down because he's feast or famine. He's too scared to play on a consistent basis. He's totally dependent on Brandon Cooks being out, and even then he's kind of sketchy. So I'm sticking with about 5% because he is. If you're injury riddled and the game script goes his way, you could have a dog that's putting up some serious points for you.
I don't disagree with what you said, Wayne, but Brandon Cooks, 31 years old, right? He was coming to the end of his life. Some stats on Tolbert that were kind of interesting. He's got 12 less targets than CeeDee Lamb and only 5 less receptions. 2 touchdowns. He's got better separation metrics. He's okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not
He's
bad.
just tough from a standalone perspective, but I do agree. I mean, hospice is coming out for Brandon Cooks' home to take care of him for a little bit, according to Begley. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Grab a couple dollars, $2-3. Go get you a Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Goni's guy. Goni actually told you to get this guy before this game. If you would have listened to us last week, this could have been in your starting lineup. Tyrone Tracy, who absolutely just went nuts, 18 carries, 129 yards. And that, again, Goni, tip of the cap, Gon was telling you to pick up Tyrone Tracy coming off of a 4 carries for 2 yards game.
Tip of the cap.
He smelled it in the air. Singletary, Goni, speak on it, man.
I mean, yeah, you touched on it. He came out. He got the opportunities, man. He took full advantage of them. I think, honestly, he may have carved himself out a larger role in the offense regardless of when Singletary comes back. If that's the case, obviously, he probably won't be playable, on a weekly basis. But guy averaged 7 yards per carry. Eric Gray on the day, he only saw 4 carries to his 18. So he got the lion's share. There was really no looking back. He was super effective. Singletary, if he was to miss this week, I think you could play Tracy again against the Bengals. They're in the bottom half. Their defense is for run defense, giving up 23 fantasy points per game. He's kind of a stash wait and see guy, but he's a guy where if you're needing running backs, I would definitely take him, especially after what we saw out of this past week and the Giants' commitment to him as a number one when called upon. Still only rostered in about 25% of leagues. So he's out there. He's out there in a ton of leagues. Personally, I mean, I'd only throw $5 on him, throw 5%. You don't have to go crazy or anything. Like I said, stash wait and see guy, but he can play.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. 5% is about where I'd go. Let me ask you, would you rather have Tyrone Tracy or Trey Sermon?
Oof. Who do the Colts play this week? That's pretty much the question that I would ask.
Let's match up to
Singletary won't be out for forever.
They play the Titans, Dolphins, Texans next 3.
Titans, Dolphins, Texans.
You don't want that Titans defense.
I mean, for what it's worth, I'd take Trey Sermon personally over him, and that's solely because I feel like he has more opportunity going forward to be the number one guy, and that's strictly off of Jonathan Taylor's high ankle sprain. Just thinking that that'll keep him out longer than Singletary's injury will keep him out.
Since we're on him, let's give a shame on whoever didn't listen to us again, because the next guy we're going to talk about that we talked about last week that is still wildly available is Rico Dowdle. I mean, he's the back, right? He's carved out his role. He's not even injury dependent anymore.
Correct. He is the guy in Dallas.
Why do we even need to talk about this anymore? Why is he still so available?
Not only is he the guy, I think he has RB2 play every week moving forward.
Especially if he gets the volume that he saw this week. I mean, 20 carries, and Zeke saw 6 and Lukey only saw 2. Absolutely dominated the backfield. Went up against the second best rush defense in the league in the Steelers, and he had a pretty decent fantasy day. He fumbled once, but I mean, he still got you a touchdown. He got receptions out of the backfield. His carries had been trending upwards anyways, so It's something you like to see. I'm with you guys. I feel like he could be a weekly play, and I have no idea why he's still available in over 40% of leagues right now.
Yeah, and just looking at the list that we're covering today, we're covering 10 players that you can target that are available in most leagues. I've had a very successful week in fantasy this week, and there's 3 guys on this 10-person list that were in my starting lineups in games that I won this week. I take that back. 4. We've covered Tank Bigsby. We've covered Rico Dowdle. Let's just move on to the other one that was in my starting lineup, Trey Sermon. This one was a gimme. We covered this one last week. We said he was going to be a huge play if Jonathan Taylor's out. High ankle sprains are such finicky injuries. It's hard to put a time frame on them. I know they try, but at the end of the day, these people are questionable until game time most of the time, and they can take you out for anywhere from 1 week to 6 weeks. So Trey Sermon, the fact that he's still on the vast majority of waivers, ridiculous. Beg, speak on it.
Yeah, he doesn't belong on the waivers. Odds are you're probably a week late. Unfortunately, I got to give tip of the cap to Gone. He called him a week early. He was all over the ankle sprain with Jonathan Taylor. Now, I mean, here's the thing, right? Joe Flacco looked good, boys. He looked very good. I don't know if it was the Jags or if it was Joe Flacco or both. But if Jonathan Taylor's out another game, I think the passing game is going to open it up for Trey Sermon. He got several goal line carries this past week. He was clearly the guy, right? There was chatter about Tyler Goodson taking some carries. It didn't happen. He is the guy in the backfield.
And something I love, tried and true since I can remember playing fantasy football. Whenever you get to a certain age, when you're a quarterback, you just automatically start dumping down to the running backs. It's happened numerous times throughout just history, and it plays in his favor. I mean, Trey Sermon, he didn't have the greatest yards per carry, 3.8. He got 10 carries for it, but he got in the end zone. 6 receptions, though, out of the backfield. You signed me up for 5 targets every single week from Joe Flacco for as long as he's starting, easily going to get you some fantasy points. Still out there in 50% of leagues. Go get this guy.
This is a guy that I put, and you're going to have to spend, but I'm talking 30 to 40% of my fab down on, and that honestly might not be enough. UJT owners need to be putting 60% down on this at least.
Absolutely. You're going to have to pay now if he's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I had to start him as well, Wayne, last week, and I got him for $1. He won't be $1 anymore. He won't be $1 this week, I promise.
Nope. You know what? Mad Bob, listen to us. Listen to us and you'll save yourself some shekels.
I'm gonna go on record, right? Sermon was the guy. I think Tyler Goodson might be worth $1 though. He
I
finished with
picked
9
him up
fantasy
too.
points. Yeah,
I picked him up too in our Lexus league just because I'm dying for running backs, and he did all right.
He did fine. I mean, he's probably better than a guy like, let's say, Roshan Johnson. Personally,
Hang on. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. But for now, we're gonna stick with this offense, and let's talk about Josh Downs. He's had 2 games back to back, really good games. 9 targets, 12 targets. At the end of the day, it's all about opportunity. This man got 12 targets, but 9 receptions off of it. You gotta love Joe Flacco being in there from a fantasy perspective. Right? I know we have our little petty arguments about Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, and we just try and argue over who sucks less. They both suck incredibly. But if we take a step back, Joe Flacco is fantasy gold for everybody else in that offense.
yeah, he is. I mean, what surprised me about Josh Downs, he outpaced Pittman in targets, catches, yards. I mean, he's the guy. And it's not like he played, like Jacksonville gives up yards to everybody, right? Downs is the favorite target of Joe Flacco. But I do think there's some caution here. Anthony Richardson's probably back this week.
Yeah, but it's Goni, what do you think with AR coming back?
Everyone scares me in that offense, with Anthony Richardson out there. I'm not going to lie. I know I'm on the AR side in the Will Levis AR debate, but generally coming into the season, I just habitually avoid any Colts receivers because it's so erratic. You don't know, man. Alec Pierce gets the deep shot, the derp shot,
The derp shot, Breeze.
Yeah, man. It's happened every week. It happened with Joe Flacco as well. I don't know. It just scares me. I like Josh Downs as a player. I think he's just fine, but I think he takes a step back with AR personally.
So he played with AR week 3 against Chicago. 5 targets, 3 catches for 22 yards. Right? And that's a really tough defense to throw against. 5 targets, not bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, but 3 for 22 ain't going to get it done for anyone.
No, absolutely not.
Next up, we got my guy. I don't remember if you all called him, but I called him and I slotted him in my starting lineup. Alan Lazard. Finally, the Jets got some fantasy relevant wide receivers. Garrett Wilson went nuts. Alan Lazard was good enough. I think he got me 15, 16 points like that, which is great when you're snagging a guy off of waivers on the last second. Another guy, I like him because when Aaron Rodgers made his move, he had a couple stipulations, and one of his stipulations were I get to bring some guys with me. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to choose guys that he doesn't like and he doesn't want to throw the ball to. He's going to pick guys that were his boys in Green Bay, and he's going to try and get them the ball. Unfortunately, Alan Lazard isn't that talented. Separation is tough for him. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers is always going to try and find him. I mean, that's his guy. That might be the most the dumbest form of analytics when it comes to telling you who to pick up. That's Aaron Rodgers' buddy.
It's friendship.
But I mean, he brought him along. Alan Lazard rode Aaron Rodgers' coattails to a contract in New York. That's where I sit on it. Alan Lazard, I'm always going to be side-eyeing him. He might not always be in my lineup. I might not even roster him in all the leagues, but I'm always keeping an eye on what's happening over there.
I think he's a guy that you pass notes to in class. I mean, the next 3 weeks, right? You get the Bills with Christian Benford, probably on Garrett Wilson, Steelers with Joey Porter, and the Patriots with Christian Gonzalez, right? So that's 3 really tough matchups for the wide receiver one. I think Lazard's got flex value for at least the next 3 weeks. I mean, you got to trust in Rodgers to get it right. And if they're going to throw the ball 50 times a game, you want a piece of that offense.
Yeah, and I mean, 18 targets the past 2 weeks. Like, you can't pass that up. Volume, take the volume. It's coming from Aaron Rodgers. we're still hoping that the Jets are going to get this thing on track as far as the offense goes. It's been stale all year. They'll come around eventually, but give me the average of 9 targets a game, and your name is not Garrett Wilson.
Let's move on. The next guy, Raheem Mostert. Is he going to be the guy that gets the main beneficiary of Achan's injury? Beggs, what do you think?
Say it again, Wayne. Sorry, my internet cut out.
Goni, go ahead.
So this one, he's a guy like I'd spend about $5 worth of fab on him. I think he's definitely worth a pickup. He's rostered in more leagues than the rest of these guys. It's just I kind of felt like he was an important one to go after. He's available in about 30% of leagues still. We like to try and get guys that are, 50 or 60 still out there. But he got 19 carries this week, 80 yards, 2 receptions out of the backfield against the Patriots. Jalen Wright, is going to be a guy who a lot of people might want to pick up as well. He's the new young guy.
Dollar for
Mostert,
sure.
Mostert outcarried him 19-13. Dolphins have a bye this week, which Achane's still, in the concussion protocol. Chances are he's out of it and back by the next game. So I think that Jalen Wright kind of just gets relegated to a couple carries a game, maybe a catch out of the backfield here and there. And it's more of a split between Achane and Mostert, how it was envisioned at the beginning of the season. Also, great schedule for the Dolphins' backfield over the next 7 games. Colts, Cardinals, Bills, Rams, Raiders, Patriots, Packers, all ranking in the bottom half of rush defense. Got to have Mostert if you're hurting for a running back.
I think this is an economics play, right? I like where your head's at. Let people spend $40 on Jalen Wright and go get Mostert for $3
Cheap.
and get the same production.
Mm-hmm.
Or better.
Better.
All right, we're going to come to the grand finale here, and this is going to be the weakest grand finale of all time. Really, I was just subjected to the worst argument of all time, and I just want to I feel like everybody needs to be subjected to that same terrible argument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out 2 guys that were argued about before we turned the podcast on. For probably 30 minutes, they were going back and forth. I fell asleep a couple times. I don't know. I lost track of time. My brain melted a little bit. So I'm just sorry, Mad Mob. Like, if I had to listen to it, so do you. Our last 2 guys on this list are Roschon Johnson and Ty Chandler. And I know what you're thinking. Why them? And to that I say, I agree. Why them? We're talking about $2 fellas. See, Goni's already kicking himself right now. Like, why are you making this a thing? Why was it made a thing before the podcast? I want to hear where you all are coming from. And if this argument plays out and there's not at least one doink made, I'm not gonna be happy. The people aren't gonna be happy. And that's just where I stand on it. So in the blue corner, we've got Matt Fulgoni with Roschon Johnson. And in the red corner, we've got Christopher J. Begley with Ty Chandler. Fight!
Man, our full governmentals out there on display.
Hey, man. Do you want to take the floor? I'll offer good sportsmanship and plead your case. We'll give the summarized version here.
Aaron Jones went out in London with an apparent hip issue. We don't know what it is. We don't know the severity. He's undergoing MRI. It's the last info we have. But we do know Aaron Jones is old from a running back age perspective. He's 29 years old. There's a chance he misses time. This could be a Goni Trey Sermon play where you get in on the ground floor of a free agent for dirt cheap, and the guy could get material opportunities in 2 weeks if the injury is serious. Is Ty Chandler a great running back? No, he's not. Not at all. Averaging 3.5 yards per carry. But here's what I like about Ty Chandler. He's been somewhat involved in the offense. He's got a 30% snap share. It's a clear two-headed backfield. Myles Gaskin did absolutely nothing after Aaron Jones went out. So I think the team has trust in Ty Chandler to be the guy. 3.5 yards per carry. He's got 6 targets, more targets than Roschon. He's on the field more than Roschon. Roschon just happened to vulture 3 touchdowns this year from DeAndre Swift. That's it. He has no other peripherals whatsoever. The upside is Ty Chandler.
I feel that.
I want you all to know, for you non-YouTubers, the whole time Begley was making his point, Goni was just completely just detached because he's just so confident in his ability to win this argument. I wish you all could have seen his face. It seemed like he didn't care. Begley was throwing a left, he was throwing a right, and Goni was just dodging, just didn't care. So I really look forward to see how his rebuttal on this one.
I mean, I don't hate the play if you're trying to call your shot, right? We got into this because Beggs kind of poo-pooed on my guy, Roschon Johnson. We're trying to help people out here for the low. Talking about $1 of your fab, a minute of your time, if you will.
Unlimited.
So, I mean, if you're trying to call your shot on Ty Chandler, that's fine. But also keep in mind, like, you ain't playing him this week. The Vikings are on a bye. That's a whole nother week that, Aaron Jones is going to be able to get this MRI, get his stuff sorted out, and he could be back. And Ty Chandler goes back into that great two-headed monster role that Begley spoke about, where he's been really, really productive. I just like Roschon for $1. He's only rostered in 20% of leagues right now. He's had an uptick in carries over the last couple weeks. He had 10 this past week. Sure, he wasn't super efficient. He carried the ball for 25 yards, but he's getting goal line carries, and he's scoring those goal line carries. He had 2 this week, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 last week, and he's got a very, very soft schedule coming up. Jacksonville, Washington, Arizona, New England, Green Bay. All not very good against the run. Also, handcuff the Swift. Who's been more injury prone over their career, DeAndre Swift or Aaron Jones? Because I remember DeAndre Swift getting hurt just about every year since the man was born.
I hate that argument.
I'm just saying. It might happen, it might not. But right now, Roschon, I feel like, is probably getting more carries, and he's getting more important carries, is the thing also.
He's getting more carries in what capacity? You're talking about, like, last week he got more carries?
Yeah, last week, absolutely.
Because Ty Chandler almost has him doubled up on carries for the year. I mean,
what's the fantasy point count, though? Who scored more then if he's had more opportunities?
Roschon has more. He has 9 more fantasy points for the year.
He's getting the important opportunities.
I just hate the argument. I can't let it fly by me. Swift's been hurt before, ergo, he's probably going to get hurt again. That's just a terrible argument.
There's some guys, though, man, because there's certain guys where you want to have their handcuff because they habitually get hurt. Have you ever in your entire, I want to say over the last 4 years, I think he's been playing, felt confident with J.K. Dobbins as your main running back or your RB2 and just been like, yeah, this man's going to make it all season. I feel great about this guy. No, you want to have a backup plan. Because he gets hurt every year. It happens. I'm just saying, DeAndre Swift is that guy.
He's not J.K. Dobbins. The most games he's missed in a season is 3.
But has he missed games every year?
I don't know if last year, if he set out the 17th game because they didn't have to play, but he played 16 last year. I mean, if you want to stash Roschon in a redraft league where roster spots are valuable, just to wait for that one game that DeAndre Swift misses, I guess power to you, Gone. You must have a loaded roster or just a league full of absolute studs. I want the guy who has the ability to have a start in 2 weeks. I'm not saying Ty Chandler's a guy you stash and keep, right? It's a play just in case Aaron Jones has to miss a significant amount of time. The Vikings at least trust him to get him on the field. to take 30% of Aaron Jones' snaps. You know who? You know who?
I'm just saying. You could throw him. You could throw Roschon right now in like the flex. He's going to be very touchdown dependent, but Ezekiel Elliott was last year, and he helped us out a couple times, being 1,000 years old. These guys, it happens. I'd rather have the guy who has the chance to score the touchdown over hoping for a breakout run from a guy. You know, I understand where you're coming from. You're trying to make this the play on the injury. But what if there is no injury? What if there's no injury in 2 weeks?
Then you don't pick up Ty Chandler. You just drop him. It's $1. Just like Roschon. You're not going to carry Roschon. No wonder he's 20% rostered. He's not good.
I feel you. Do you want to put a doink on who has more points for the fantasy season? You're right. They both suck. You probably shouldn't pick up any of these guys, Mad Mob, but it's the principle. It's the principle now. I'm throwing down the chicken foot. If you've ever seen Prison Break.
Is this the worst doink ever taken?
No, you guys did. Who would have more career yards between Will Fuller when he hadn't played in a year and a half and Calvin Ridley, who was on gambling suspension?
Well, that was an easy. Wayne gave me an easy win, and I took it. But those are actually good players.
As far as quality of player, no, it's probably about as bad. It might be a notch or two under the AR Will Levis debate, even though AR is going to destroy.
That's not going to be close. Yeah, I'll take it on the condition that we do it as of this week. We ignore fantasy points today. They start 0-0 from week 6 on. Then you have yourself a doink, sir.
All right. I'll rock with you. We don't do conditions, but I'll make the exception for you.
We don't do this, but I'll do it. That doesn't make much sense.
All right. Well, I mean,
It does.
Make it known you're eliminating a lead that was legitimately earned.
Well,
it was.
He thinks Roschon's the second coming of Walter Payton in that backfield.
This is what he always does. You're working on not getting your condition taken back, bro. That's the only reason, because Begley has to nickel and dime you for everything you've got when it comes to anything.
Well, in Begley's defense, he's taken more L's in the doink ledger than any of us, and it's not even close. So it's about time he started to nickel and dime, because at least he still has his bad takes, but at least he's giving himself a little bit of a lead on his bad takes.
I'm down bad right now, boys.
All right, Mad Mob, you heard it. Roschon Johnson versus Ty Chandler. You heard the argument. Who's the winner? I think we all lose, personally. That's it. Make sure you get Tank Bigsby. Make sure you get Rico. Make sure you get Trey. And keep your eye out for Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, Tyrone Tracy.
Darnell Mooney. Go get Darnell Mooney if he's still out there too.
Darnell Mooney ain't out there, but I mean you're right. If he is out there, go get him. Don't make Goni tell you about Tyrone Tracy again. He ain't gonna do it. And we'll see.
50% of leagues. Darnell Mooney, 50% of leagues. Go get him.
Oh God, go get your Darnell Moonies, people. What are you doing?
Yeah, go get him.
You know, he's taken every target that we thought Bijan Robinson would earn this year. That's what's happened.
Darnell Mooney to the moon.
To the moon.
The Mad Mob, we will see you Wednesday for part 1 of the Week 6 preview. We're out.